to talk about your new book, Tech for Good. Tell us about the motivation behind writing this book.
So to pick back up what I just said about the $1 trillion shift and that book, when I wrote that, I was, it's always a discovery for myself as well, because you research so much for such a book. And I found it's great the role that technology plays, actually, if we want to achieve those global goals. And for those people that don't know the global goals, we have set out 17 sustainable development goals that cover all aspects of ESG that some others will work with. And it's a timeline from 2015 to 2030. And it's actually what I call the new definition of sustainability, because it encompasses everything we need to solve on social, ecological, and governance aspects. And that was all described in the $1 trillion shift and how that actually unlocks a $12 trillion market opportunity. And in that book, there's a chapter about technology, and that is fascinating. Imagine that technology impacts 12 of the 17 goals. 70% of what we need to do can be impacted by technology. So I thought this is so important. Yeah. I also noticed that, and I noticed that especially in boardrooms, since I'm on boards, that people are shy to acknowledge that they lack knowledge about technology and about all kinds of new technologies, which is totally normal because, things happen so fast. We all need to be educated and need to learn, But especially in boardrooms, people shy away from that and feel ashamed almost not to know it. So I thought, we need to educate people, but then in a way that is accessible, because there's so many books about technology. And even if I, read them, then I think, oh God, it's so much, it's complex. And so I wanted to write about technologies in a way that's accessible and that's also enjoyable to educate yourself and to read on it. And the third reason to write the book was that I see so much fear, negativism, despair around technology, that it's actually dominating the debate around technology. And that's understandable, because of course, where there's new technologies, there are threats and there are risks and things go wrong or people have malintentions. So we need governance to protect us all from that. But it's taking the debate away from the fact that technology is also our only hope. If we don't use technology to solve all our problems around the world, to help agriculture, to help education, to provide people access to healthcare, many topics, then we won't achieve it. So we need technology. So with only negativism around it, we're not going to do that. And so that was my third reason to write the book.
So then tell us, what are some ways that you're seeing technology being used to address some of these challenges you just spoke about around in agriculture and education and healthcare?
Oh, in so many ways. So the book describes 8 groups of technologies. And let's not get on into all those technicalities, but it goes from AI and data to 3D printing to robotics to advanced materials, extended realities, autonomous vehicles, blockchain, and space tech. So those are all the 8 groups. And what you see is this is a very novel time in the way that if you look at former industrial revolutions, it was 1-2 inventions that were big things. We got gas and light, we got heating in our houses, we got access to internet, the former digital revolution, which is not finished, of course, for everybody on this planet. And that was relatively simple. But now it's a spectrum. It's a wide range of technologies that are partly physical, partly digital, and blend, merge, and combine, like a huge toolkit, if you will. And that toolkit, if you imagine opening it up at different times throughout a couple of years, you have different tools in there, or you have new variations of the same tools in there. And that's more or less what it is. And now this huge toolkit we can use to improve every single business sector or every single global goal, what I just referred to. So for instance, if you look at healthcare, now we can help people in remote areas by digital connection and AI, and even by having a robot in place to do surgeries in a remote area that couldn't be done before. We can use AI to analyze huge amounts of data and get predictions on illnesses like, for instance, breast cancer or other things, and diagnosis in a very short period of time. Whereas before, it cost a lot more money and it took a lot more time. So that's just an example of healthcare. If you think about education, we can revolutionize education. One, we can take it to places that are not accessible. We're all in the developed part of the world. We have schools, we have relatively good systems. There's a lot of parts in the world where that's not the case, where there's war, or where there's huge classes with 60 kids in it, or where children just can't reach their schools. And now we have the opportunity to do it digitally in a simple way, or at least provide additional education online. We can educate now our children, for instance, by virtual and augmented reality, to put on their glasses, literally, and step into other parts of the world, which has a huge impact on intercultural understanding, for instance, if you literally can travel to another part in the world. So education is huge. Another part, like, for instance, agriculture, we waste 1/3 of food being produced or lose it. But we also need a lot more food for the growing world population, and especially in more difficult areas around the world. And now with the use of sensors and robots and AI platforms, people can produce for lesser costs, but also less use of water and energy, produce more food in the same amount of space. I'm just trying to explain it in a very simple way, otherwise making it complex doesn't help. All these areas I describe in the book, all these sectors and all these technologies, but it's beyond our imagination what we actually can do with so many technologies that are ready to be implemented already, which is also important. It's not all experimental anymore. Of course, there's new waves of technologies that come about that are still experimental or very expensive, but that doesn't apply to all of them.
Yeah. What do you see as some of the challenges that organizations and businesses might have in implementing some of these great technologies that are out there? What are some of the roadblocks that they may face, and what are some things that they could do to overcome that? Because it's a lot and it's going so fast.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think learning from things I see that don't work is always the most easy thing. So what I see often is that companies then make reports and analyze across all these technologies and all of their businesses, and out comes a big plan, which is they can't ever execute on that. So I always say, just select one thing that impacts your business in a positive way, that is close to the organization's DNA and sector, and apply it there. So if you're in agriculture, do something there. If you're in the health sector, do something there. Make that work. So also don't try to do something which is far out in the future, but make it work, because you need to empower and give everybody the confidence and the self-confidence that this company can do these things. That's one way. Another way is to have your employees educated in a very accessible way. Sometimes say, just try out some things for yourself. Everybody can try out AI with photos or whatever, just to familiarize yourself with new technologies. Now, of course, it's the older people in the working population that have this problem, whereas Generation Z millennials are tech savvy, tech native. I mean, they can teach us, if I speak for myself. I always advise also to use some tech internally in the company. for DAI purposes, for training and education purposes. I mean, I know some companies that use augmented reality for company training purposes. It's not so complex, and you get this technology-driven culture from the ground if you're not a high-tech company. That's one thing. Another thing is collaborations. What you see now is it takes too long for companies to go through the whole route to learn new things, then apply, and then scale up. Whereas if you combine a couple of companies that bring in different skills or bring in the money, the technology, and the sector, and you bring those together, either in a joint venture or whatever shape or form, then you learn from each other, and it's much more feasible to get things executed in short term. That's also a great way.
Yeah, I love the examples of just starting small.
Yeah.
And starting from the ground up and really involving your employees in that. I think those are great examples of reducing that feeling of overwhelm.
Well, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Because otherwise people will fear things, they will hold back. And another way, which I see in some companies and which I try to motivate to do, is engage with some good causes. You have, for instance, the Plastic Soup Foundation, you have the Ocean Cleanup that use all kinds of new technology to get the plastic out of the ocean and put it into, recycled products. And people are very enthusiastic if you do something with a purpose in combination with technology. And then they get the feeling, okay, we're in this space, we're doing things like that, we could do more.